Am I the a-hole for no longer making toys and furniture for my former sister-in-law after her new husband called them an embarrassment and me cheap for not paying for stuff? My brother died before his firstborn child was born, and because of this I've had an above-average involvement in my nephew's life. One thing I've always done is build him toys and furniture. It was a way of providing without the awkwardness of handing over cash. Also, between my late brother's cash and life insurance via work, a trust was set up for my nephew for about £500,000. He wasn't actually married to my sister-in-law. Now, via the lab at work, I've made him a lot of wooden or 3D printed toys, but also simple handmade electronic toys. My sister-in-law was always grateful for these, and my nephew, by all accounts, loves his custom toys. Fast forward 3 years and my former sister-in-law has gotten married. I was attending my nephew's 3rd birthday and I turned up the night before to assemble his present. It was a small climbing frame / swing set I had watched better carpenters than me in the lab make. The new husband was a little standoffish, but come to the day of the party, he was telling anyone who listened that I didn't pay or make the present. I had lackeys at work do it for free. This culminated in him calling all my presents an embarrassment, and that given my fancy job, I could afford to splash some cash. I confronted him with my former sister-in-law, and she basically confirmed that whilst the presents were appreciated, she honestly expected more direct support from me after my brother's death. My mother stepped in and reminded her my brother paid for this house, and they regularly take cash out of the trust, approximately £10,000 a year. We walked out without hearing any worthwhile response, but I continued to see my nephew without incident. 6 to 7 months go by and I'm visiting, only to be told that my former sister-in-law was pregnant with twins, and she was wondering if I could make some duplicates of items made for my nephew as they needed 2 sets. I scoffed, said she had balls asking me to make stuff after she was so ungrateful, and said I owe her unborn children very little. She got upset and explained her prior statements about my handmade gifts, and said she felt they were the kind of little things someone did as a favor, not what a family provides. That's why she's asking me now as a friend to do her a favor and manufacture duplicates. I said no again, and her husband shouted through that it didn't matter. They would just use the trust to provide for kids like it's supposed to. I retorted that it was for my nephew, and good luck accessing it for that, because the trust requires my signature to pay out. I wasn't even home before he was calling me to apologize, clearly unaware I held the reins to my late brother's money. The apology was insincere, and I asked to speak to my former sister-in-law where I confirmed again that I wouldn't be manufacturing her anything. I'll still be an uncle to my nephew, and be impartial when it comes to her accessing my nephew's trust, but her husband has burned a lot of my goodwill with this. Am I the a-hole for not doing her a favor after all that? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. First, my condolences on the loss of your brother. Your sister-in-law is beyond entitled. She lives in a house paid for by your late brother and benefits from a trust, and then has the gall to criticize your gift to your nephew? Outrageous! Brother knew what he was doing by setting up the trust. Smart. Not the a-hole. It was largely the insurance company, I believe. The money was mostly from life insurance via work, and the circumstances of his death, car accident deemed an unlawful death, had the responsible party's insurance paying out. One of those really morbid situations where they came around and valued my brother's worth to his child down to the pound. This is actually a big part of what inspired me to make my nephew so many things. The insurance company putting a monetary value on my brother's DIY skills, and lowballing it because he was just an electrician. Thought I'd step up since the insurance screwed her over. You're an amazing uncle and brother. I wish all kids had someone to look out for them like you do for your nephew. Not the a-hole. Sorry for your loss. Your brother was so smart to give you control over the trust for your nephew. That ensures your nephew's position is protected both financially and in this new family. Sister-in-law's new husband is bad news, and she doesn't seem to have good judgment. If you didn't have oversight on things, I bet your nephew would have been robbed and neglected by these greedy people. OP, you're not the a-hole now, and you will be not the a-hole when nephew wants to use his money, but sister-in-law wants to split it among the siblings. Not the a-hole. But if you need a couple of nieces, my daughters would absolutely love handmade toys. In all seriousness though, I think handmade puts more thought and effort into your gift than just spending $50 for a piece of crap at the store. Being told repeatedly your gifts aren't welcome, and then being angry at you for not providing more of the supposed unwanted gifts, is ridiculous. And your sister-in-law's husband absolutely is being insincere. I just hope he doesn't take out his anger on your nephew, especially when the new babies are born. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to contribute to my step-family? I'm 17, living with my dad, his wife, her 2 sons, and a daughter they have together. My dad's marriage to her started out as he was cheating on my mom while she was sick. She found out about it and kicked him out, but she died before a divorce could happen, so I went to live with him then. I was 10. In the last 7 years, I have done everything to just spend as much time with my other family and not get involved, and it worked. My dad lost all my respect with what he pulled, and his wife was put forever in the nothing-to-me zone when she kicked up a crap storm when my mom's funeral rolled around, which is a story we don't need to get into. But anyway, I have a part-time job. I also get some money from grandparents on occasion, and I have savings that only they can access while I'm a minor that was saved by them. So my dad lost his job because of COVID last year, and his wife was a stay-at-home mom. Things took a turn for the worse when they found a couple of leaks and mold in the house, where a lot of whatever money they had needed to go into. Now they're okay-ish, but could do with more money. They have asked me to start pitching in with money. I said no. I said I support myself with my money, and the rest goes on me getting out as soon as I turn 18. My dad's wife told me they deserve to be treated better after 7 years, and that the least I could do is accept that they are also my family, and family helps each other. And then my dad said do it for the kids. Or at least for my half-sister, since she's still a toddler and is related to me. I asked him if he really thought I was happy about his bloodline given what he did, and given that he expected me to just suck it up so he could have what he wanted, when I was a grieving 10-year-old. He told me most kids get over petty stuff like that after a year, and that we could have been a better family. And then he ranted about how much my mom sucked for getting sick and dragging us down. He's lucky I'm pretty in control of my emotions, because he pushed buttons that are very sensitive. I told him he was the one who brought things down, and I told him I didn't get to crap on someone for trying to survive, and how dare he expect that to win me over. But the fact still remains things are pretty rough right now, and there is a 3-year-old involved, as well as a 14 and 15-year-old. So let me know, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's not your job to support the household, it's theirs. Right? Stepmom can't afford the luxury of being a stay-at-home mom at the moment. She needs to get her butt up, get a job and stop harassing Opie. Meanwhile, Dad can get a job at any fast food place to tie the family over. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Absolutely not the a-hole. It does suck that they're having such a rough circumstances right now, especially for the children involved. But you know who else had rough circumstances with the child involved? Your mother. Did your father and his wife and the kids help then? Return the favor. Give them as much help and support now that they did then. Can you stay with your grandparents? I was about to say this very thing. Could Opie move in with the grandparents? Agreed. Opie is 17. They will be out on their own very shortly. Grandparents don't need to do any racing. Not the a-hole. I was an adult, but my sperm donor also was cheating on my mom while she was dying and she didn't have time to divorce him. I say this from the bottom of my heart. Screw your dad. Get out as soon as you can and never look back. Any person who can do what he did is really screwed. I keep a bail money account for the day of my sperm donor's funeral, so I can walk up in the middle and piss on his casket. Just check your local laws and make sure that won't land you on an offender registry. Otherwise, I support this 100%. Save the pee in a jar over the days leading up to his funeral and let it ferment a bit, and then tip that over him. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my wife's ex-in-laws during our pool party? My wife Ari was married back when we were only friends, and she and her husband Eric were trying to have a baby. They weren't successful, and one day they approached me asking if I'd be willing to be a sperm donor for them. I agreed to it after some time to think, because she was one of my closest friends and wanted to help them out. We talked about my role being the fun uncle type and being there for important stuff. She got pregnant and had my son John. She and Eric separated when John was a few months old, but he was still involved. But when he was 7 months old, Eric passed away. Ari struggled a lot as a single mom, and so I wanted to help her out more. Slowly, little by little, I got to be more involved helping take care of him. And 4 years later, I fell in love with Ari and we pursued a romantic relationship. Eric's family was still involved in John's life, and they were outraged when they found out about us. His sister in particular, who's like 35 by the way, started spreading rumors that we were having an affair when she got pregnant with John, and tricked Eric into letting me be a sperm donor to cover it up. It was pretty wild. They just saw it as Eric committing a massive betrayal to Eric's memory, starting a relationship with the biological father of their child, even though they were already going to divorce. I had to cut it off for a while. Then we got married and have another baby on the way. Last year, Eric's family wanted to come around again to see John, 7. We talked it over and agreed to it. It mattered to us that he still gets to have his grandparents around, so we hoped it would work out. Due to COVID, we only saw them a handful of times, but they were invited to our pool party. Sometime during the party, I heard some arguing and my wife went back into our house crying. I took them into the house and asked ex-mother-in-law what happened, and she looked furious. So the topic of John's school came up. Ex-mother-in-law was trying to convince Ari to send John to the same school Eric did, and they had a disagreement. This led to the topic of Eric being brought up, and how Ari keeps finding more ways to dishonor his memory. Knowing her, I'm sure it was more she said to make Ari that upset. I was so mad that I told them they needed to leave right now. They left through the front so party guests in the back wouldn't see, but they were still furious at being kicked out. And really think I was an a-hole for making them leave over a disagreement like that. I'm just not happy with them at all, and neither is Ari. But still wonder if I was an a-hole for my reaction. Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. I mean, you're asking whether you are an a-hole for telling people to leave after they insult your wife and make her cry? Obviously not. Also, it's probably not good for John to be around such boorish people. Horrible family members often try to play this woe is me game. A good exercise is to ask yourself, what would you do if a random stranger walked into your home and insulted your wife? Would you let them hang around and have a burger? Time to consider cutting that toxicity out of your family's life, because it does not sound like it's getting better. Not an a-hole. They don't get to judge and be rude to your situation. Also, it's your home, so it's your rules. You guys gave them another shot to come back into your lives on good terms, and they blew it. You handled it appropriately though. Let them slip away from the front door so no one sees. It saves them public humiliation, which would have escalated it more. You stuck up for yourself, your children, and your wife. Family first, my man, and you've put them ahead over everything like a great father and husband. The family seems to be abusive, manipulative, and mind-numbing. Get them out now before they become a larger headache. We're talking about it. Aside from their issues with us, they really are great with John. But at the same time, we don't want them filling his head with anything. Not an a-hole. Because of course you, your wife, and your son deserve to be respected, especially in your own home. Legally take the steps to be identified as John's father. Speak to a good family lawyer before Rex's in-laws go take you to court on the basis of grandparents' rights. Better to be safe than sorry, and to have all the information you need about what to do before it gets to that point. Yes, we went through the proper channels for me to become his legal father. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's siblings to grow up during my divorce with their sister? Me, male 30, and my wife, female 34, are getting a divorce. Luckily, it's not malicious and toxic. We have simply grown apart and think our daughter will be happier growing up with 2 individually happy parents versus 2 resentful parents under the same roof. It's still hard though. It's sad and it's stressful for both of us. My wife went to stay with her dad, and her 2 siblings visited. Her sister's very negative and very angry. She always starts some kind of argument. Her brother is the opposite, a kind soul, very funny and gentle man. Then she calls me in tears and says they're all being horrible. Apparently the first thing they did was try and convince her that we were making a mistake, and clearly hadn't thought this through. When my wife grew defensive, her sister said she's clearly not in a good state of mind, duh, and that she should leave because she was being toxic. The brother said nothing, and neither did her dad. They just let it happen, and now they're all being weird and aloof with her, during a time which needs them most, and drove 6 hours to see them, and instead she's driving back in tears. I called her sister and let rip. I said, how is it possible that she goes to see you because of the divorce we're getting, and yet she's calling me for comfort because you're being nasty? I was angry. Her sister said this has nothing to do with me. Then her brother called me, and I said, how can you be a part in making her feel so awful after all she's done for you all? I told him it's pathetic, and I told them both that they need to grow up and be there for their sister when she needs them, because she's always there for them, no questions asked. My wife isn't angry at me, but she's upset at the situation, and her dad sends me a seething text telling me to leave his kids alone. I feel like an a-hole, but I also feel that they were being total a-holes. Maybe everyone sucks here. I would just appreciate an outsider's perspective. Not an a-hole. You're probably not the best source for that message, but goddamn if you weren't 100% right. Lol, when the guy divorcing your sister is more considerate of her feelings than you. OP, I commend you for how you well stood up for your soon-to-be ex. I wish more divorces were this amicable. Not an a-hole. It seems very distasteful for them to negatively criticize their soon-to-be ex instead of comforting her during this time. All in all, it seems like you still really care about each other due to you standing up for her in this situation, and her reaching out to you for comfort. I would be sure you're actually ready for the divorce. We are very good friends, but that's all at this point. It's platonic, not romantic. We care for each other and always will. Not an a-hole. It's sad that you had to have her back because her own family was being hurtful. I'm thankful it isn't a resentful toxic divorce, because she clearly doesn't have much support on their end. Not an a-hole, although I'm not sure it was a good idea. I doubt it will make things better for her. They're more interested in enabling her sister's behavior than caring for your ex-wife, and she will be the one who has to deal with them in person. Does she have any friends she could stay with? Could you help her move to a more supportive atmosphere? Am I the a-hole for getting my colleague in trouble for calling me his work wife? Some time ago, I, 29 female, was assigned by my European-based employer to work on a project at our US location. Part of my assignment was training a new hire within my special area of expertise. This new guy is about 10 years older than me and hired for a management position. However, he is in no way my superior, as I take on more of a consulting role with the local team. I noticed straight away that he is very outgoing and sociable, joking around a lot with his colleagues. Quite different from the man I am used to, as I come from a northeastern European country where the male stereotype can only be described as silent. He immediately took an interest in me and started jokingly flirting and complimenting my looks. This made me uncomfortable since we are both married, and I felt it was very inappropriate. It also made me feel as if he did not respect me professionally, when comments like, "You look so cute when you're serious," would interrupt my training sessions with him. The assignment itself was a big deal to me, and I wanted nothing more than to exceed expectations, which is why I was reluctant to bring this up and create drama. I tried ignoring his behavior, but the last straw for me was when he started calling me his work wife openly in the office. I understand that this term is used in a joking manner in US office culture, but we absolutely do not have anything similar in my home country. And if word were to get around back home about this, I would have to explain to my husband why some random man decided to call me his wife. To avoid this, I decided I needed to put an end to the casual flirting and jokes from this man. I sat him down one-on-one and told him in short that he had to stop calling me his work wife. He seemed to understand, but I may have been too nice or vague in my approach toward him because he acted no differently in the following days. This made me frustrated, as I felt I now had to either go to my and his boss and risk this reflecting badly on my assignment or risk conflict in my marriage. I ultimately decided that my marriage was more important than my job and told my boss about my issue. Luckily, my boss took me seriously and told me that he would handle it and to stop worrying about it. I am not sure what went down after this, but the flirting and the compliments from my colleague abruptly stopped. I was relieved, but I also felt that my colleague acted very cold toward me after this happened. I still successfully finished my training sessions with him and the assignment and relocated back home. Now, in retrospect, I am wondering if I overreacted due to the cultural differences between the US and my home country. Maybe what my colleague was doing was just normal social interaction, and I acted like a complete a-hole by getting him into trouble with our boss for mere joking. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He was acting unprofessional as hell. Not just unprofessional. I think this qualifies as sexual harassment. OP, of course he was going to act cold, That's a big part of how these a-holes get away with their crap for so long. You behaved nothing but professionally, and here you are wondering if you went too far by asking to be treated like a professional. You did not. And you've made it easier for the next person he tries this with to tell him to get lost. Yeah, once she told him that his flirting jokes were making her uncomfortable and were unwelcome, then he kept doing it. That removes any ambiguity about sexual harassment. Not the a-hole. Terms like work wife are and can be uncomfortable. I am not European or American, but I would be uncomfortable with a man calling me his work wife, even if he and I were friendly. You did nothing wrong. In fact, you did what you could in the right way. You spoke to him in person first. Then, when that didn't change his behavior, it definitely became harassment on his part. So you took it up the chain to your boss, who dealt with it. I'm American, I work in an office-type situation, and I promise you anytime somebody even mutters the word work husband or work wife, HR is on their ass. That is a very slippery slope to harassment for a lot of people, and HR does not like it. He probably got told if he did it again, he'd lose his job, because it's easier to replace one employee than pay out a lawsuit. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sending my brother a $12,000 bill after he borrowed my car and wrecked it on a joyride? I, 28 female, have been saving for years to buy my dream car, a fully restored 1967 Mustang. I finally bought it 8 months ago, and it's basically my baby. I barely even drive it because I want to keep it pristine. Last weekend, my younger brother, 24 male, came to visit. He's always been the fun sibling, life of the party, always pulling stunts. I love him, but he's impulsive and doesn't think things through. I went to bed early Friday night because I had work the next morning. When I woke up, my car was gone. I called him, and he laughed and said, "Relax, I just took it for a spin." Well, turns out that spin involved racing some of his friends down a back road. He lost control, went into a ditch, and smashed the entire front end. The repair estimate came back at just over $12,000. Insurance won't cover it because he wasn't an authorized driver. I told him he had to pay for the repairs. He said he doesn't have that kind of money and that it was just a stupid mistake. My parents are begging me not to make him pay because he's struggling financially and family comes first. I didn't listen. I had a lawyer draft a formal repayment agreement, and now my brother is furious. He says I'm ruining his life over a car, and my family is calling me heartless. I told them that if he'd owned up immediately and offered anything toward fixing it, I might have let it slide. But the fact he stole it, wrecked it, and laughed about it? No. So now there's a huge rift in the family. My parents say I'm overreacting. My brother says he's cutting contact. And I'm sitting here wondering if maybe I really am being petty. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother didn't just make a mistake. He stole your car, drove recklessly, destroyed it, and then laughed about it. The $12,000 bill is the direct consequence of his choices, not you being heartless. Family doesn't mean enabling someone's irresponsibility. If anything, holding him accountable might be the only way he learns. Exactly this. Thank you. I think what's frustrating me the most is how my family is framing this like I'm punishing him for just a mistake, when in reality, it was theft, reckless driving, and zero remorse. If I'd done something like that to his property, I'd fully expect to pay for it. I'm not trying to ruin his life, but I refuse to let him think there are no consequences. He's lucky you didn't get him on grand theft. I know I'd be going scorched earth on him if I was in your shoes. Exactly. If I wanted to, I could have gone the grand theft route, but I figured getting my $12,000 back was the priority. Honestly, he's getting off light. So by fun sibling, you mean the sibling that never faced consequences? Not the a-hole. It's time he dealt with the repercussions of his actions. Yup, he's always been the fun one, because everyone else ends up cleaning up his messes. Honestly, this is the first time he's actually had to deal with the real consequences of something he's done, and you'd think I'd committed the crime with how my family's reacting. Not the a-hole. I'd sue him for the damages and press charges for theft. That's why I went ahead with the lawsuit. The car repairs were $12,000, and there was no way I was going to just eat that cost because of his fun prank. Pressing charges definitely crossed my mind too, but I figured getting the money back was the priority, for now. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to fund my parents' retirement for the rest of their lives? Since I was 18, my retired elderly parents, in their 70s now, had been living with me, 32 female, up until 6 years ago when I met my partner. During this time, and even after I moved in with him, I had funded my parents' lives, bills, rent, food, etc. My brothers, 38 and 42, who are both married and living with their own families, have helped a little with medicine and occasional cab rides to the doctor. But that's about it. My parents have nothing saved, have had a history of failed businesses, and sold their house to fund more of those. My dad refused to find a job through all of this because he insisted he was going to be a businessman, despite having absolutely no knowledge of how to run one. Meanwhile, the three of us, his kids, quit school to work and feed ourselves. Fast forward to the present day. I have a newborn and am unemployed, and I've told them that's it. I've got nothing to give. They were very understanding but would still call every 2 weeks and hint at needing cash. We are barely staying afloat ourselves with a single-income household, and I'm honestly sick of it all. A relative of theirs had taken them in and lent them money to help them get back on their feet, which they sank into another pyramid scheme they insisted was a tourism agency startup. They are convinced it will be a while before they make money from it, as they've been completely brainwashed into believing this. Now the relative is asking them to move out. I'm at a loss. I've finally let go of the guilt and come to the conclusion that their life decisions, refusing to save, refusing to sort out their retirement, refusing to look for work after selling their business decades ago, selling their house and squandering that money on more startups, instead of funding our schooling or buying another home when they were young, have brought them to this. They've been coasting on the generosity of friends and family to survive. I often get calls asking how I am and if I've found work yet, disguised as concern, that almost always conclude with an unsubtle hint at their financial woes. When I bring up all of the above and the cause of their problems, I get the whole, "What do you want us to do now? Roll over and die?" They constantly talk badly about my siblings who don't call anymore and don't help, when in reality, my siblings have families too. They have bills, each has 2 to 3 kids, and can barely hold down a job themselves. They own homes paid for by their spouses, with just enough space for them and their kids, whereas I am renting far away. Now that I'm a parent myself, it's clearer to me why my siblings have kept their distance. I can't imagine putting my son through this and being this much of a burden and an embarrassment to him. I'm frustrated and also embarrassed. While I'm trying to move on with my life and bury the childhood trauma that came with all of this, it feels like they're still stuck and trying to drag me down. Is that selfish? And am I the a-hole for having no plans to go back to funding their lives? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You need to build up your own emergency fund. They could have made better choices, like buying a camper and becoming camp hosts at a campground for free boarding. They have options. You're not that option any longer. I'd start limiting your conversations with them. The thing is, my grandaunt practically gave them land in the countryside that belongs to the family to turn into a campground. They then convinced a friend to invest in it by putting down money, 10 grand, for a cabin with basic facilities. The house sat vacant and unfinished, and the friend went unpaid because they refused to move there, saying it was too far from the city. I feel so sorry for all the people left in the wake of these poor decisions. When they ask if you found a job, ask them the same. Refer to their companies as what they are, pyramid schemes, and they'll get mad. Sometimes the trash just takes itself out. I have been killing myself trying to help my mom, only to see her not just squander any money she gets, but also turn it into debt with those pay-in-4 installment deals. I resent her so much I can't even deal with knowing her anymore. I'm moving away, and whatever happens to her is her own business. Let them figure it out. They don't get to consume your life after they threw their security away with both hands. Yes, especially since life was so much easier back then. They lived through the best eras post-war and got to own 3 homes outright before they were even 40. This was years before I was born. They had all the chances to do what they wanted with their lives, and they just wasted it. Ugh. Yeah, it is ridiculous. I can't even understand how people make these choices. When COVID hit, I told my mom we needed to do something about her retirement since she was turning 50. I got back into college and said we could live together, save on bills, and then I could graduate and be in a position to help her. Instead, she refused to find a job after running out of unemployment, got jealous of me going to college, and sabotaged me. I was so stressed from needing to cover everything that I paused at college again while I paid for everything. And I could not let myself abandon her. Now it's been 5 years, and I've realized there is no scenario where she will not court poverty. Some people are users, and they take advantage of your goodwill. I'm saving to move now, and good riddance. She better figure it out. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my future mother-in-law she can't move into our house just for a few months after the wedding? So I, 28 female, am getting married to my fiancé, 30 male, in October. We bought a small 2-bedroom house last year, nothing fancy, but it's ours, and we've been slowly fixing it up together. It's been a labor of love, and we're both really proud of the fact that we managed to buy our first home before getting married. Last week, my future mother-in-law, 58 female, casually dropped a by-the-way bomb on me over coffee. She said she plans on selling her condo right after the wedding and moving in with us, just for a few months while she figures things out. Her reasons? It'll save me money for my next place. It'll be nice for you to have help around the house. I'm family now, so it just makes sense. The problem is, this is not some spacious house with extra bedrooms and a finished basement. We have 2 rooms, ours and a small office or guest room that I use to work from home 3 days a week. That guest room isn't really extra space. It's my workspace. If she moved in, I'd have nowhere to work without sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop and noise-canceling headphones. It's not just the space issue. My future mother-in-law is the type who can't help but reorganize things that aren't hers. She's the kind of person who will rearrange my kitchen because it makes more sense her way and comment on how I fold towels or how often I vacuum. She also has opinions on everything. From what groceries I buy to how we decorate, she has unfiltered commentary. And when she says a few months, I know from experience that means until you make me leave. She once stayed with my fiancé for just a couple of weeks when he was in his old apartment, and it turned into nearly 6 months before he finally had to tell her she couldn't keep living there. When she brought it up, I told her, politely at first, that while we love her, we need to start our marriage as just the 2 of us. I explained that we need to settle into our own routine without extra people in the house, especially since we don't have the space to accommodate her comfortably. She did not take it well. She went straight to my fiancé afterward and said I'm already trying to keep her son away from her and that I'm ungrateful for family. Now my fiancé is caught in the middle. He admits it would be stressful to have her here long term, but he also hates the idea of starting a fight with her before the wedding. Meanwhile, she's acting like it's already decided. She's even told some relatives that she'll be moving in with us after the honeymoon, as if my input doesn't matter. So, am I the a-hole for putting my foot down before this even happens? That witch is gonna check in and never check out. Nip that in the bud right now. That's what I'm scared of. She's gonna turn our guest room into her permanent residence and suddenly my house becomes her house. Not happening. Yeah, I wouldn't be getting married until the fiancé sorts out his mother. Good luck, sis, and congratulations, I guess. Right, I love him, but if he can't set boundaries with her now, I can only imagine what the rest of our marriage would look like. Boundaries aren't optional here. Exactly. Tell him straight up that this is a deal breaker. He either tells his mother no, clearly and firmly, or there will be no wedding.